Hi guys, welcome back to Spoons and Spirits. Today we're going to have a look at eyes. So looking at how to carve wood spirit eyes. We're going to look at three basic stages, going from a very beginner level, intermediate, to more of the expert. And I wouldn't say I'm an expert on eye carving. It's a very difficult art and something that to a beginner can be quite intimidating. But if you follow these steps, it's going to take you from very simple slit type eyes to forming the eyeball and then into all of the little details that go with eyes. I would say straight away, you don't have to consider these as beginner, intermediate, or expert. As I'll explain going on, depending on the size of the carving you're doing, sometimes having that basic eye is much better than having a more intricate eye. More can go wrong with trying to make it too fancy and too expert looking, and actually you can then detract and take away from the whole carving. So I'll go through each section and tell you what's good, what's not, what's going to work where, and hopefully we'll have a lot of fun on the way. Let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, it's worth showing you one of my little setups, which is a really big help when it comes to carving eyes, faces, anything. And that's just start to build yourself up a bit of a selection of photos. So all I've done here is I've just gone across Google and looked for bearded older men, hairy old men, hermit, whatever, anything. Not calling any of these guys a hermit, mind, but anything that might bring up the look that you're looking for. You could go for the old sort of fisherman style there that we've got, and just study them, have a look. You could also use photos of yourself. They don't have to be printed out. They can be on your phone, on your tablet, whatever. It could just be even a photo book from someone else. Get lots of different expressions, get lots of different styles and types, hairstyles, anything like that. So just keep going through it. Find things that interest you, things that you think that might be quite a good one to carve. Like for instance, this one, you've got a lot of shadow here, but you can see lots of extra wrinkles and marks, adding in sort of looks like a scar there at the top. This guy, he's got brilliant curves around the eyes there, so great to be able to copy and have a look at. Build something up that you can reference, because just going from your own memories, your own thoughts, can sometimes mislead you. You can go a little bit away with yourself. Having something to refer back to is really, really handy. Real good skill to be able to use to go back to something. And they don't have to end up looking exactly the same. They don't have to end up looking just like your subject, but they will give you a focus point. You'll be able to see the distances between eyes to cheek to nose, and you'll be able to see the distances with beards, for example. There's so many different styles of beards. I know from personal experience, your beard is very unique to you. So having a look at how people's beards grow, for instance, this one's got a bit of a rounded curve to the bottom. This one's a very sharp point. This guy's got a lot more cheek before it hits beard. So have something to look towards that you can then go back to and have a bit of an idea. And if your carving starts to go in its own little direction, then fine, that's okay. It doesn't really matter. So all I'm going to need for this, and if you are going to follow along with me, is I'm going to use a detail knife. This is the flex cut detail knife. You could be using the fine detail knife. Personally, I prefer this one. It's got a thinner tip to it. That might just be more the way I've used it more, stropped it more, carved with it more. But I prefer this. I find it much easier to use. You could use the larger rough out knife if you are used to a bigger blade. I'm also might use, don't know yet, we'll see how things go, might use a V-gouge and possibly a very small number 9 U-gouge there. 1.5 mil, that one. That comes with the quick, whatever it's called, quick handle. This remover anyway set. It's a great little set. Highly recommend it for anyone. Very affordable as well for the quality. And I'm going to carve with some sycamore. You could carve with anything. You could carve with a piece of pine or lime wood or basswood. If you've got that available, you could carve with any old branch that you happen to pick up. This happened to be cut back from the front of my house last year or so, and it's been stored in water since, so it keeps it nice and wet and green still. But this is great for the video because it's a very pale, light coloured wood. I'll try to show you the end there, I'm running out of space. It's a very pale, light coloured wood, so you should be able to see the contrasts as we carve. And of course, gloves. Got to wear gloves. Okay. Also, please do let me know in the comments down below what you're thinking of the new setup for you guys to watch here. I'm using a new system to hold my camera and get some better light in here as well. If you're finding it better, great, let me know. If you're finding it worse, then let me know as well, and we'll see what the odds work out to, who likes it and who doesn't. But it's always good to find out what's working for everybody. Right, so first of all, I'm going to look at this stick, and again, like a lot of the 5-minute wizards, a lot of the sort of basic wood spirit carvings that you get, they're working on the V of the wood, the angle of the wood. And again, I'm looking at this and I'm feeling it's quite oblong. You can see that to the end there, it's quite an oblong piece. So I am going to start on one of these lines, and that one's got a bit of a chip out of it, so I'm going to start on this side, I think. But as I said, I'm not going to go into the full carving. You can look back at some of my wood spirit videos if you wanted to look at full carvings there. I'm just going to concentrate on the eyes, so we're not going to go too far. Okay, so stage 1, the introductory stage, the beginner stage, whatever you wanted to call it, whatever happens, this is always where I start with eyes. I will always start here, whether I'm going high detail or low detail. This is what I do. Now, most starter videos say to make a stop cut, just like that, straight across to the brow. But I'm not going to do that. I find that creates a very stern brow, and if you look at most of the pictures that we've got here, when you look at the brow lines, they're very rarely dead straight. This one, for instance, has a slight upward angle to him. This guy, again, you look at those brow lines, they're actually more that sort of angle than straight across. And although I can put my line on it, when you actually look at them, it is a very slight curve aperture. And I find as well, if you do have that straight across, it's a very stern look. It depends on what you're going for. If you're going for a stern looked character, then go for it. But personally, I'm just going to start with 2 stop cuts. I'm going to come to the point and I'm just going to go 1 and come in just there like that. I'm going to flip it round. I'm going to do the same there. Now again, for me already, I'm looking at that and thinking that's a little bit too acute an angle, so I'm going to come up and pull it up. Okay, there's plenty of wood at this stage that if you don't like it, you can just keep going on it slightly different. So okay, so that's what you're looking for to start with. That's the look. I'm going to take some of this other bark away here. Okay, and then all I'm going to do now is imagine the nose is here. I've just put a tiny stop cut in there so that hopefully you can see that line a little better there. But all I'm doing now is cutting in. Stop cut. Into it. Cut it off. And again, the same one. Same on the other side even. Going in there, and I'm very controlled with this. Again, I'm cutting into my hand, but I've got this stop cut here protecting my hand. Even though I've got gloves on, they don't always work. Never completely rely on your gloves. It will take the edge of a basic impact off, but any slice, stab, anything like that, they will just go straight through. Unless you're wearing proper chain gauntlets or anything like that, that's always going to happen. So, just to give you an effect, I think I will put the bottom of the nose in. Okay, so now you can see you've got the nose coming down there. We've got these 2 slits for eyes. Now, that is pretty much it. All I would do to add to this is just in the corner, get your knife in there and there, and just cut in that last tiny triangle a little bit for depth. And that will just add in, and then again, possibly I think bring it in a little bit more there. So you're bringing that angle in tighter towards the deeper end of it. And what that then does is it creates shadow. Shadow will give the illusion of a dark look where you can't necessarily see the guys or girls' eyeballs. And that is basically all I'm going for. Okay, that's basic eyes. When it doesn't look like much now in the light here, but that will give you the effect of eyes at the top there. Again, if we came in with the nose, I can't resist. That's my problem here. I cannot resist it. But if I came in with the nose, take that off. Okay, that is going to give you a basic feel of an eye. All right, so that's the basic stage one. That is what I would start with. This is the sort of thing I would use for those extra small carvings. So something probably about the width of my pinky finger and down. So if I was carving a pencil, then that's the kind of eyes I would put into the pencil. And if I was carving, say, a very small figure, I know one that's going to come up in a future video soon, you'll see has these eyes, and it's just, they provide a basic illusion of eyes without going so far that you could get it wrong. You've got to rely on your skill, your knowledge, your confidence in carving it, and it's always better to be happy with the basic and get the basic right than it is to muck up the expert. Okay, right, so starting to move on to stage two, and again, you can take this a little bit further and start to work onto stage two, but I'm just going to take that edge off of that eye there, and I'm rounding out, and you'll notice in the wood, the benefit of having the bark on it still is you'll see the difference. It almost rounds it, it takes the angle away, and all I'm doing is just leveling out the angle on the eyebrows. Okay, and I'm bringing it in towards the eyes. Again, if I bring it towards the shadow, you can see it a little bit more there. You can see those slits better from this side, actually, where there's light, where the light's not so concentrated, but the slits there, that's how the effect works. You get that effect of a slightly squinty person, squinty old man in the wood. And this is what I'm doing now. I'm just bringing in that angle, because let's face it, if you look at our own faces, we don't have angled faces as such. I mean, some people have more angled than others, but generally angled isn't the look human beings tend to go for. So we're very smooth, we're very curved individuals, so that is the sort of thing I'm going for here. Okay, and when I'm moving my knife, I am giving more of a sweeping feel to it, so that it can, I'm not going in straight, I'm coming round. And although this design of knife doesn't necessarily work to that, in these small carving aspects it does work, and on green wood it works especially well because it's so much more pliable, so much more workable. It might not work so well with a drier piece, you might get more stringy bits, but hey ho, this is what we've got right now. So I've opened it up a little bit, almost got the effect of an owl with a nose, to be honest, but that's what we're going for now, and this is now working into stage two. So what we're going to do with stage two is we're going to start to put in the foundations of an eyeball and of some eyelids. I can't resist it, I've got to do a little bit more. Okay, so I found a pencil, nice bright blue one. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to just mark in those eyes. So you need to imagine the slit that we made originally, that long slit across there, is basically the edge of the eyelid, the bit that closes and goes up and down on the eye to blink. Okay, so all we want to do is just bringing in around there, we're just going to bring an eye, bottom of the eye, like that, and then we're going to do the same top of the eye like that. This is actually quite a wide-eyed fella here. My pencil's marking where it shouldn't do. Okay, always mark with a pencil, especially when you're starting out, because it will show you if you're symmetrical or not. Although, as I've been told with eyebrows, you want to have sisters, not twins. Same sort of thing with a face. You want them to be very similar, but quite equally, it doesn't matter if it's slightly different on each side. Imagine that line drawn right down the nose. As long as they are close, it's fine. If they're exact, it might not necessarily look quite right. So, now that we've got that, there's two ways of doing this now. We can either use the V-tool or just cut in with the knife, okay? You could use your V-tool to just come in around here, and I think I'll try and do one or the other. Normally, I wouldn't personally use the V-tool on this one, but to show you, I'm just going to come in on that line and bring in that. And I wouldn't use this because this is quite a small carving for the size of my V-tool. If I had a smaller V-tool, more of a veiner, then I might use that. Now, I'm going to come in with my knife now, and all I'm doing is I'm going straight in right now, not at any angle or anything like that, going straight in. Now, remember that an eyeball is rounded as a ball. So when you're cutting in, you're not going to be cutting in from this side. We're cutting in from the eye down. Okay? So I'm just going to come in there. Okay? That's the big thing. One thing I always remember with eyes, I think it was Doug Linker that said it. Just remember which way around your eyeball goes. Okay? That your eyeball is what you're carving, not the eye socket. If you carve the eyeball, you'll naturally get the socket to go with it. And again, we're going to do the same at the top. Now with this one, you've got to think about how your eye goes in. So if we bring one of these guys back here, if you're looking at his eyelid is going straight up into his head. It's not going in that way. Okay, it's going more into his head. You could go at a slight angle as well, but generally you're not going straight down. You're going up. Okay. So again, I'm going to do the same sort of thing there. Follow that line straight in, and then again from inside the eye to the outside, just carving in. Now this is really where you need that sharp tip of your knife. I'm going to go in again. Okay. Now, again, this sort of fine detail here, this is where things could go wrong. It's about styling it out. If something goes wrong, work with it. There we go. All right. Again, assess your carving. Have a look at what you've got. If you think, I don't know if I can get that top eyelid in there, don't. Just put the bottom one in. That will give you just the same sort of effect. Okay? Go with what you're confident with and what your knife and your wood will allow you to do. And again, if you can see those fluffy bits in there, keep cutting. Don't just use your knife to try and wiggle it out. Keep the cutting in the right angle. So, if I bring that up to the camera, hopefully it will focus for you. That's better. So you can see the wood is quite wet, so it's gone a little bit wispy, but you can see that eye socket in there. Okay. And then it's just a matter of neatening it up. Until you get what you want. Okay, I'm going to finish off that other one and then we'll get to the next stage. Okay, so that's the other eye done as well there. So we've got the basic eyes in place. All right. Before we go any further on this one, I would recommend as well taking out the corners. So where you see like the side corners and the inside corners, you want to take out the tiniest little bit. So I'm going to put my knife in there and put my knife in there. That will create more of the illusion of the roundness of the eyeball. And it's these triangles. I'm just taking out that triangle. You see that difference there? Between that one and that one. So taking out that little triangle just gives that edged cornered point to the eye that really helps to give that realism. Again, I'm going to do the same in the very top corner. Okay. So you look at the difference in those two eyes already. Yeah, you're going to get a little bit anyway naturally as you come in at the angle there. Okay. There, a little bit more. That's a bit straight actually. I don't like that so much. Let's come in more at that angle. Take more of the triangle out. That's a bit better. Okay, so there we go. We've got those eyes in place. This is the point now where you can start to decide how you want the eye to look. Do you want the eye to have the lid half closed, fully open, completely closed? It's completely up to you at this point now. Most people, when you look at the eyes, it depends on how you want it to look. This guy, for instance, here, his eyes are kind of half open. This guy, you can barely see anything of his eyes, and this guy's the top of his eyelids are completely covered here by his eyebrows. So it's completely up to you. It again depends on the look you're going to go for. And when it comes to pupils, there's two ways of doing it. Either you can take a tiny little hole into it and carve the pupil into the eyeball, or you can then paint it. So it's completely up to you. I find it is quite effective with some wood spirits. If you're going to leave a very natural finish, just paint the eyes, and that kind of gives it that magical pop to it. But again, it depends on how good you are with a paintbrush as to how you're going to dot them on. For now, I'm going to show you how I carve in the eyes. So I get this great little number 9 U-gouge here, and then you want to make sure you know where the eyeballs are going, the pupils are going. Forgive me, I keep saying the wrong thing. I'm going to go about there, and I think about there, and again check it. Where are they? Are they looking right? Are they in the wrong place? That looks about right to me. Okay, I have done it before where I've given one of my wood spirits a lazy eye. You just need to be aware of it. Now all I'm going to do is, you've got to see this gouge is basically, try and get the focus on this. It's basically half a U, half a circle. Okay, I can't get the focus on it. It's basically half a circle. There we go. So we're going to go in one way and then bring it round and do the other way to create that circle. Okay, so just straight in on one side of the dot and back out again. I am not pulling anything out just yet. I'm doing that now with the second one. So I'm going in and then very slight angle just as you pull it out, and it pops that eye out. Okay, and then it's just a matter of going in and cleaning it up if you want to clean it up. Now actually on the camera that looks a little bit smushy is the best word to put it, but off camera that actually doesn't look too bad, so I'm happy with that for a minute, because you've got to assume as well, if you're using green wood, these kind of fine details don't always come out well while it's still green, so it's sometimes a lot better to just wait for it to dry off and then go back to it. So there you go, those are the two eye points on there. Okay, that's where that little number 9U comes in there. Right, so I'm not going to put eyelids on there. If I was, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to carve in one line and then carve in underneath. So exactly the same as we did for this, but it would be, if I was to do it down here, straight in one way and a very shallow line just underneath, so it helps to create that eyeball still. Okay, that's all you're doing. All right, so that's all you're doing for the eyelid there. Do you know what? Actually, no, let's do it over these eyes. So I'm going to give him a slight lazy look to him. Not that way. Going to come in there. And this might work. It might not. It might look absolutely ridiculous. But let's see. And again, I don't want at this stage to rip anything, any bits of wood out. So I am just very slowly, just very gently, almost like I'm doing some archaeology here, pulling that part out. And then I'm just gonna, because you've created a divot in the eyeball, you then want to bring the eyeball down a little bit. So I'm just carving a tiny little sliver off of the eyeball. To bring it down. And what that does is it just creates a tiny shelf, almost. Can you see that? So a tiny little shelf on the eye. So a slight lazy look to him. Okay, I'm going to go in a little bit more, define that look. Okay, this is where the technique gets really much more complicated. Okay, this is the tail end of the intermediate. This is something that just takes time and practice and getting it wrong. All right, there is nothing wrong with getting it wrong. The only thing wrong with getting it wrong is not trying. And you're only going to get it wrong then if you don't try. I've kind of lost myself on that one now. Again, I'm going to do the same on this side. Bring it across. And then put that divot in. That little V cut almost. And I'm going to come in and lower that eye into it that bit more. Could already see the wood oxidizing actually. You can see the change in colour. Can you see that? There to there. That shows you that even though this has been stored in water for, like I said, between about 8 months and a year now almost. I think it was last year I cut the tree down. It's still like green wood. Rushing it. See, this is what happens when you rush it. It crumbles. Don't rush it. I'm not telling you guys, I'm telling me now. Great little handy thing, little portable toothbrush. Great for getting in those tiny little gaps. Okay, so that'll do for now. All right, so I've put some eyelids in there. That is pretty much the end of stage 2. Okay, so you've got the eyeballs in there. It's very basic. Again, you can dot them in. I'm going to just dot in the little eyes there so you can see them. We're going to have blue eyes. Okay, with some lazy little eyelids there as well. Move it over this side, you might see the shadow a bit more. You see? Okay. So now we're looking at stage 3. Stage 3 is doing all those details around the eyes. If we go back to the pictures, here we're looking at all those lines around the eyes, next to the eyes. Okay. So immediately the one common thing that they all have is a line directly under the eye. And then they've all got another line coming directly down. So almost like a V, a curved V across. You can see this guy's more prominent underneath and less so on the V, but they've all got that V. And so talking of V's, we're going to swap to the V tool now as well. This is where this really plays itself here, because it's quick and easy and you're only really making lines. So if we look at these guys now, automatically you've almost got that line directly under the eye. So it's just about accentuating that line. So we're going to bring that in there, and then we're going to have another one come down there across where the cheekbone would be. Now, as you're carving, you're going to naturally get these lines in anyway. So it's just about watching where you're going and going over them again. So those are the first two. Okay. At the moment, he's got his wall paint on. And I'm just going to use the V tool, bringing it up. Okay. And I'm going this way because I want the accentuation furthest away, and then I want it to blend in nearer the top. So I'm pulling it back out, shallowing that gouge into it nearer the top, nearer that point. And because that will then protect the nose, so you're not going into the nose so much, because you're not having to dig in and come around, because it's going to be hard coming in at that angle anyway and then coming around. But also it sort of blends into the center of the face, sorry. Again, I'm going to go around this line now nice and slow. A sharp V tool is what you use here. A blunt one will get you nowhere. On that note, when it comes to sharpening V tools, really recommend the slip strop from Flex Cut. I must admit, I'm using everything Flex Cut here right now. I'm not supported by them. I am not sponsored by them in any way. I just find they're really affordable and good quality, especially for beginners. And it turns out I've been carving now for years and I still use the same ones because they just last. They last really well. And I know that a lot of well-established carvers have the same thing. So I'm just going around there. And then I'm just going to slightly angle my V in there to provide more of a line. Okay. And then we'll come back to that in a minute. So again, following that up, coming back out at the last second. And again, the same just under the eye. So this is, like I said, this is that third level. Coming in, I'm going to try and timestamp it. I've never done that before, but I'm going to try and timestamp this video. So hopefully you'll be able to go along the bar at the bottom and see where each level is, starts and begins and ends and everything. If it doesn't work, I apologize, but I've seen other people do it, so hopefully it's not that difficult. Okay, so you're looking at those lines there. Got a little bit stuck in the eye there. Okay, a tiny bit of blue is keeping my attention. That's better. Okay, so now going in with your knife, you're just rounding some of those edges off very gently. Okay, and then again, because like I said, the face is not made of sharp angles. Yes, there are creases. Yes, there are tighter bits, but generally they're all rounded. Okay. This is really the stage as well where those photos really come into their own. You see there, you notice I am just taking the tiniest of slivers off. Okay. And then we go back and look, and of course we've got things like crow's feet. So and then we're going to go in. We're just going to put, I think 3 lines tends to be the average. So we're going to go 1 up, 1 down, and 1 to the side. You can't really see it there because the bark's getting in the way. But again, this side's probably better. 1 there, 1 going up slightly, 1 coming down slightly. Okay. Now, although that looks quite straight, the pencil's thicker than I actually need it to be. So it's going to be more of a curve to it. Okay, so we're going to come in first, I think, with the middle one. Okay. There. Underneath. And on top. Take some of that bark away. Actually. There we go. You can see things a bit better now. Right. Back to these eyes. So 1 in the middle. 1 on the side. And 1 on the side. Okay. Same again. I'm going into the eye because I'm pulling it out so I don't ruin what I've already done. Okay, this probably you could have done. I probably could have done better without the V-tool, to be honest, because you can get a much finer line in there, which I'm now going to come in and adjust. Just going in with a in and out bog standard V-cut. Okay, you see that there? Let's take that little bit of blue off. Again, it's all these leftover bits of blue. Watercolour pencils are fantastic on green wood, but they do last. To a certain degree that's good, and to a certain degree that's a pain. Okay, now because I've come in with those crow's feet, I've taken away that point at the end of my eye, so I'm just going to go back and put that in. Just adds that definition that really makes it pop. And it doesn't matter what kind of caricature you're doing, whether it is a realistic character or caricature. Either way, these little bits of depth really help to make things pop. Okay, so now looking at it, you've got those looks there. Okay, these sorts of bits make all the difference. Okay, now you can also think about the rest of the brow. So you're going in now and looking at all the differences. So actually I'm going to bring this brow up a little bit. Again, being very careful. I'm steadying myself with both hands on this knife. I've got one thumb here on the side, one hand, and then obviously the other hand holding it. I do not want to go too far and ruin what I have done. I am slicing in so I can feel every bit. Oops, hit the camera. Sorry about that. If anyone's feeling seasick, please don't complain to me. That's a better way of doing it. Okay, now because I've done that, that's opened up the eye that little bit more. So you can see all the detail that little bit more. And it's just about going over your lines, making sure that depth is there. You've got all that stick to go through. So never worry about going too far. If you mess up, take it off, start again. Okay, you've got all that wood to go through there. And if you're using a stick like this, it's free. You're not wasting any money, you're just wasting time. And you're not really wasting time because you're practicing. And practice makes perfect. So now to get those last few things in, I'm going to bring that nose in. Okay, so you can see it there. Okay, because these last few lines will really help to frame that face. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is these lines there, following that nose down. Okay, so I'm just going to come in a little bit there, and I'm not going too deep with this one because I'm going to put the rest in with the knife, because I don't want the width of the 70 degree gouge. I want it the depth of a thin cut. Okay, and so you notice I'm not pulling anything out. I'm just in and out and in and out until I can feel that piece get loose. Okay, and then bring it in a little bit where it needs bringing in. Now you can go in by the eye with your eye. Okay. Now obviously it looks a bit strange at the moment without the rest of the face in there, but when you look at the details of this here, okay, let's put in those eyeballs there so you can see a little bit without the blue. Again, I'm just going in dead straight, but what I'm going to do this time, because I've done the lid, I'm not going to do the top half. Okay, I'm just going to go in at the bottom like that and pull that out, and then that creates that lazy eye look. You can't quite see. There it goes. You can't quite see the whole pupil. He's a bit lazy. He's just woken up. He's had a long sleep. Someone's cut him off of his tree. You know, this one was 3 or 4 years old. 3 or 4 years of sleeping, and then someone's cut him down and cut him up. He's a bit tired. Okay, so there you go. Now we're looking at those different elements of carving the eyes. And now all I would just do as you're finishing your carving is just going around, obviously neatening up those edges that you don't want as edges, putting in eyebrows, wrinkles across the head, things like that. At the moment it's very flat plain because it's those basics going in. All right, but now we've got those good foundations of doing eyes. And again, once it's dry, if you are using green wood, go back in again once it's dry with your knife, clean up those edges, really clean them up, and just get rid of all the fuzz that tends to come from green wood anyway. Clean it all up. You can go in with a tiny bit of sandpaper once it's dry. Don't do it when it's green because it will just turn into, I mean, it looks like you've just ripped up a load of cotton wool. If you go in when it's green, it's terrible. But once it's fully dry, go in with the sandpaper again, take off the edges, smooth out the areas, just roll it up into a tiny bit, get into those little cracks and edges. You could even use diamond files if you'd prefer, and really soften it up, and you'll really see the pop then. Okay, so I thought I'd show you the effect after about 24 hours. So this stick now has been drying for 24 hours. I've gone over it again with the knife and a little bit of sandpaper. I did accelerate the drying process a little bit. I popped it on top of the radiator. You do risk a bit of cracking with that, but I just wanted to be able to show you what happens quite quickly afterwards. Like I said, gone over it again, neatened up some of the lines a little bit with my knife, and then put a bit of sandpaper to it to smooth out some of these edges around here, just to take out the flat plane sort of style workings on it. Obviously, it's a little bit, might look a little bit strange at the moment, but for this sort of size stick, I'd probably only really go to level 2. I probably wouldn't be doing all of these details. This sort of details really would be on something a bit bigger. So I'm thinking more that sort of size of a carving, that sort of width. This sort of stick, like I said, I'd only really go to stage 2. And like I said earlier, stage 1 I'd reserve for something size of my little finger or down to a pencil sort of carving. Yeah, so, but that gives you a bit of an idea of how to work it. Please do though as well, if you've liked the video, please do hit the like and subscribe buttons. Any comments would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.